Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I'm not sure I would have had the courage to do what Noah did. People are intrigued by many different parts of Noah's story. Building the ark amidst the jeers of his neighbors, collecting all the animals in their pairs, living on the ark with them while the waters flooded the earth, not knowing where or when it would end, or what would happen to them then. And all that is intriguing, but that's not what captures my imagination the most. I can't get over how, when it's all over, God makes a covenant with Noah, and to mark God's promise, he hangs up his weapon, putting his bow in the clouds. Right there, Noah's faith in God stuns me. You see, I know that in order for us to see a rainbow, there has to be a lot of moisture in the air, and the sun has to be at a certain angle related to that, and if all that is the case, we have a rainbow. So, after all that rain, after all that water, after all that time, Noah leaves the ark, and while God is making God's covenant with him, just over there, it's raining again. I probably would have seen the rain and said, "You've got to be kidding me. More rain?" Yet after all that rain, after all that water, after all that time, with it raining again, Noah trusted God. It's amazing. This is the week of our national Thanksgiving holiday, but giving thanks is not limited to some pilgrims in Massachusetts or to our families gathered around a table filled with turkey and all the trimmings. Throughout the Bible, there are examples of people who give God thanks, and it happens in many different circumstances and for many different reasons. However, I want to mention that when we think of Thanksgiving in the Bible, we tend to think of the story of the 10 lepers whom Jesus healed and how one of them returned to give thanks to Jesus and praise to God. That's not our goal for this week. Rather, my hope is to cast our net a little wider and see some of the other Bible stories in which people were thankful to God. Noah is one of those, and he thanks God for deliverance. Most likely we know the major parts of Noah's story, how the world had turned out wicked and God decided to destroy it all and start over, how God noticed that Noah was righteous and planned for Noah and his family to be the seed with which to begin again, how God gave Noah instructions to build the ark and collect the animals, and then how it rained so much and for so long that the whole earth flooded, destroying everything, and how eventually the ark came to rest on the top of Mount Ararat. What happens next, we also know. How God promised never to destroy the earth like that again and set the rainbow as a sign of that promise. We know that story. But if that's the story we know, we have missed a pretty important part. You see, the first thing Noah did when he walked off the ark was to build an altar and offer sacrifice and praise to God. It's all there in Genesis 8. It says that Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of every clean animal and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Now, before you get caught up in the minutia of he took only a pair of animals and now he sacrifices one, how are they going to reproduce? Remember two things. First, they were on that ark for a long time, and the animals had had time to have offspring while on the ark. And second, the Bible is very clear that of clean animals, he took 7 pairs into the ark. Again, that whole issue is a distraction from what's important here. What's important is that after the whole ordeal, the first thing Noah did was to give God thanks and praise. Noah thanked God for delivering him, his family, and all the animals from the waters of the flood. I think Noah also thanked God for new beginnings, that his family had a new beginning on a fresh new earth, and that God had given the world and life itself a new beginning. God had given them and all the earth a fresh start. Our God is a God of second chances and new beginnings. One of the things that we can learn from this story is that we, perhaps, need to be more intentional about thanking God for how God has delivered us. Oh, we might notice something big that comes along, but think too about all the little deliverances that God works in our lives. The many times things work out for the good. The second chance of forgiveness that God gives us over and over. The fresh starts that come our way in life. Those don't happen by accident. And perhaps we should notice them more often and give God our thanks and praise. The other thing we need to pay attention to here is that giving God thanks and praise was the very first thing Noah did when he got off the ark. How can we be more intentional about making thankfulness our first response to God's help? So often we might give God thanks, but only as an afterthought, offered later, after we have celebrated our good fortune. Noah put God first. Before he did anything else, he remembered God. He gave God thanks and praise. This week our focus is on giving thanks. Like Noah, let's thank God for deliverance, first, foremost, and always. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.